I'm going to try and show a couple of methods of reinforcing peacock herl. I've got a hook and the vise. The hook doesn't matter for this demonstration. And I've got Nana silk, 30 denier brown Nana silk on the hook. The thread and the thread diameter does matter. The colour of the thread doesn't matter, but it has. I'm using the fact that this is an extremely fine, extremely strong thread for one of the techniques. The other technique, it could be a more conventional thread. The peacock herl I'm going to work with is this stuff. It's actually dyed blue, strung peacock herl. So it's ordinary strung peacock herl. It's not off an eye or anything fancy. And I'm not going to sort out the strands. They are all aligned, so the tips are all at the same end. But I'm not going to try and find the up and down of them. Two things came up when I was working through my comments on peacock herl. Two things came through. The tips of peacock herl are fragile and are probably best broken away, or I think better, I prefer to cut the herl. The butts, you can see the blue dye on these there. The butts are thicker and there's a bit of pith to them. There's a bit of foam-like interior to them, and when you tie them in, a fine thread or a strong thread or tight wraps can actually break and cut these, or they'll snap as you start to bend them over the hook. So I like to cut away a bit of the butt end if I'm wrapping in by the butt, and I do wrap in, for some purposes I do wrap in herl by the butt, usually when it's getting tied in singly. Now, if I catch that in by the tips and return the thread to the rear portion. One of the things that books will mention, or people will mention, is twisting peacock herl, and what they mean is something like that. It neutralises it sort of evens out the fibres. It makes a thicker bundle. It's attempting to use the fibres to reinforce each other. I don't think it works an awful lot. What I do is I try and wrap so that the fibres are next to each other, but if one begins to go off on its own path as I wrap, and one of those is actually, what I'll do is I'll put a slight twist, maybe one turn in this end of the herl, and that just brings the fibres together. It groups the fibres and it helps control them. For reinforcement, I'm going to use two methods. One is wrapping the thread around the herl. The other is wrapping the herl in the opposite direction to normal, and then passing the thread through it as almost as a palmer, as a rib or as a palmer. So I'll do this one first. I've got choices here. I can go anti-clockwise or I can go clockwise. If I go clockwise, when I wrap when I wrap this, I'll hold these together. I'm holding the thread and the herl together, and what will happen is each turn there'll actually be an increase in the number of in the tightness here. I'm actually adding twist as I wrap forward. I can let that hang. It's the thread has caught that in all the way up to the point where I've finished wrapping. Very secure, works fine. I find it gives me a pretty. I'm not particularly taken with the effect on the herl. The herl seems to be all over the place. It does work well, and as a method of securing the whole thing, it's good, especially if you're using a strong silk like Nana silk. So I'll unwind that. Other method, I need to get back to a neutral position with this. The other method is a bit more, I think it's a little bit more unusual. What I'm going to do is normally what I would do is wrap the herl that way. And the same way as I wrap the thread. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap the herl this way, opposite way to normal. And otherwise, other than that, it's completely normal what I'm doing. I find I get a better control over the herl. I get a nicer finish on the herl. It's fluffier and denser on the fly. I also seem to, for some reason, I seem to cover more of the fly, if you get what I mean. I get more length out of it this way than when I twist the herl round thread. Now, this is where it gets a bit tricky, I suppose, because what I want to do is take the thread in open turns through the herl while I'm still holding this. And that's it. You can see the thread in this case. I've used a glossy brown thread, so it can be visible. If I'd used a black thread or a green thread, or if I tinted this, which is actually what I do more often now, with a pen, then the thread would be all but invisible. And again, the herl is trapped where the thread ends. I like using this method when I'm palmering. So for instance, on a Griffiths gnat, one of the methods I use for a Griffiths gnat is I tie up, this is the peacock body, and then the hackle is palmered in the same spiral as the thread. The hackle itself actually reinforces peacock herl. It's a bit tougher than peacock herl. But that double reinforcement is always worthwhile. Anyway, that's a couple of methods for reinforcing peacock herl, using thread rather than wire, or certainly better than twisting the herl and using that. Glue underbody, if you lay down a layer of head cement or super glue and then wrap peacock herl, I find it works to a certain extent, but what happens is you're actually gluing down the flue, the fluff. And if you happen to then take a fly apart, what you'll find is you can wind these herl off, and the only thing that stays on the hook is the fibres that were trapped by the glue. So it's not giving you a really secure, I don't think it's giving you a very secure fly. It's better than nothing, but it's just not my favourite way of doing it. So those are my thoughts on reinforcing peacock herl.